Alright, let's dive into tissues today. But hey, forget about just memorizing a long, boring list of cell types. We're going to tackle this like we're solving a design puzzle, because it turns out there's this one, single, really elegant principle that kind of governs all of biology. Form follows function.
So, this is it. This is the most important idea for our entire explainer, and honestly, it's a huge one. Form is just the physical manifestation of function. In the world of cells, literally nothing is random. Every single structure you see under a microscope, it's a solution to a problem, and our job right now is to be the detectives and figure out what that problem was.
Okay, so that brings us to a really interesting puzzle. Why is there such a crazy diversity in cell shapes? I mean, why does a neuron look like it's reaching out with all these branches, while a skin cell is basically just a flat, stackable brick? The answer to that question, well, that's the key to understanding everything we're about to cover.
First up, let's talk animal tissues. We're going to look at the master blueprint that builds every single complex animal out there.
And here it is. This is our master blueprint. Pretty much all animal structures are built from just 5 basic tissue types. You've got epithelial, which is the coverings, connective, which is all about support, blood, the transport system, muscular, the movers, and nervous, the communicators. So let's break them down one by one. So first up is epithelial tissue. The easiest way to think about it is as the body's surfaces and linings. It's like the wallpaper inside your intestines or the tile on your skin. Its main job is to be a barrier, right? But it's also in charge of letting things in, like absorbing nutrients, and letting things out, like secreting sweat. And this is where that whole form-function thing just clicks perfectly. Think about it. Do you need to get oxygen across a membrane really fast, like in the lungs? Okay, use a single, super flat layer of cells. That's simple squamous. What if you need a tough, protective barrier for your skin? Well, then you stack those cells in a bunch of layers, stratified squamous. The design literally tells you what its job is.
And you know what? The specializations get even cooler. If you add these tiny little hair-like things called cilia, well, suddenly the cells in your trachea can sweep all the gunk out of your lungs. Or change the cell shape so it can hold and release stuff, and boom, you have glandular epithelium. These are the body's little factories, making everything from sweat to milk to hormones. The form is the function. It's that simple.
All right, next up, let's look at the tissues that are all about support and connection. The internal framework that holds our entire body together.
So here's the deal with connective tissue, and it's a little bit counterintuitive. It's not really about the cells themselves. Nope. It's all about what's between the cells. This stuff is called the extracellular matrix, and it is the real star of the show here. The properties of this matrix, whether it's a liquid, a gel, or a solid, that's what defines what the tissue actually does.
And this just illustrates the point beautifully. Check this out. If you need a transport system that can flow through tiny vessels, what do you use? A liquid matrix, and that's blood. If you need some flexible, shock-absorbing support, like in your nose or your joints, you go with a semi-solid, gel-like matrix. That's cartilage. And for a totally rigid frame, you absolutely need a solid, mineralized matrix, and that's bone. You see? The matrix is the message.
The variety here is just incredible. Adipose tissue, which is just fat, stores energy in cells that are pretty much just bags of lipids with very little matrix. Then you have fibrous tissue, like in your tendons, which has a matrix just packed with strong collagen fibers for yanking muscle on bone. And then there's reticular tissue, which forms this delicate web-like matrix that acts like a soft internal skeleton for organs like the spleen.
Blood might be the ultimate example of this. The cells, the red ones, the white ones, the platelets, yeah, they're essential, of course. But they couldn't do a thing if they weren't floating in their liquid matrix, the plasma. It's that fluid form that lets blood be the body's ultimate delivery service. All right, moving on to the action heroes of the body, the tissues that are responsible for every single move you make and every signal your brain sends out.
And yep, the principle holds true for muscle tissue too. There are 3 types, and each one has a totally unique design for its specific job. Smooth muscle cells, they're spindle-shaped for slow, involuntary contractions. Skeletal muscle is made of these long, powerful fibers for all your voluntary movements. And cardiac muscle, it's branched and interconnected, designed to contract rhythmically as one single unit, your heart.
And finally, we have nervous tissue. Just look at the shape of a neuron. That is not an accident. The branching parts, the dendrites, they're shaped that way specifically to receive signals from tons of other cells. And that long single axon, it's a transmission cable designed to send that signal far away. It's a communication device, and its form perfectly matches that function.
Okay, so we've seen this principle hold up across the entire animal kingdom. But what about other kinds of life? Is this like a universal law of biology or something? You know what? Let's put our theory to the test. Let's look at a completely different blueprint for life.
So let's turn our attention to plants. I mean, they solve totally different problems than animals do, right? They can't just get up and move to find food or run from danger. So how does their tissue design reflect their function?
Okay, so the plant blueprint is basically broken down into two main categories. You can see it right here in this cross-section of a stem. You've got meristematic tissue, which is all about growth. Think of them like plant stem cells. And then you have permanent tissue, where the cells have grown up and gotten specialized jobs, like forming bark or wood or transport vessels.
And what do you know? Once again, form follows function. Meristematic cells are tiny, simple, and have thin walls. Why? Because their only job is to divide as fast as they possibly can. But once they mature and become permanent tissue, their form changes drastically to solve totally different problems. They become these hollow tubes, the xylem and phloem, to create a transport system for water and food, which is kind of like our own circulatory system. Their form is a direct solution to their stationary lifestyle.
So we've taken a tour through both the animal and the plant kingdoms, and the evidence is just overwhelming. So what's the big takeaway here? What does all this mean?
The grand principle is this. Histology, the study of tissues, it's not a memory game. It's a logic puzzle. If you can look at the structure of a tissue, its shape, its layers, what's between the cells, you can actually deduce what it does. You can think like a biologist.
And so we're ending right where we started, with this one single powerful sentence. This is the secret decoder ring for understanding the entire microscopic world. Every single structure tells a story about the job it was designed to do.
So I'm going to leave you with one final thought. We've been looking at healthy, functional tissues, but this principle, it applies everywhere. Now that you have this tool, what do you think the disorganized, rapidly dividing, invasive structure of a cancer cell, what does that tell you about its terrifyingly successful, deadly function? Think about it.